it was all there. It was a totally different book in the beginning. It was long, it was verbose, it was a lot of like, he's an asshole and I'm not, and let me tell you why. And then we had to cut all of that out. There's a saying in memoir, everyone who's ever been in a class with me has heard it before, and it's the only person that should ever look like an asshole in your memoir is you. And so it was really important to me that I cut all of that like posturing, pretentiousness, like false stereotypes, all of those things needed to go. And then what was left just happened to be lean, which is a style I prefer anyway. So it felt true to me.
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists, and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills.
Episode 175 is a deep conversation with my dear friend Jessica Danger, Director of Education and the lead instructor at Dead Reckoning Collective, and the author of her memoir, No Heroic Measures, available wherever books are sold. We talk about grief, addiction, caregiving, estrangement, sobriety, and the responsibility that comes with telling the truth.
Welcome. This is Veteran Made.
Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by Go Pills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
Good afternoon from the great state of Ohio. For me, good afternoon, just afternoon.
Just
in the great
really.
state of California. Jessica Danger, welcome to Veteran Made.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to say those words. I wanted to have you on for like a few years.
We've been talking about this forever.
I know.
We finally did it. We're doing it.
I'm glad we're doing it in this context, in the context of you having a published work to talk about. We'll talk about the other stuff too. We'll talk about Dead Reckoning. We'll talk about your work in the community and all that. But like, very excited to talk about No Heroic Measures. Your memoir. I told you about one issue that I have, which is that I finished this and I was like, oh man, you unlocked something for me. I have to get back into mine and keep working, which I would imagine as a writing professor and a teacher and an educator and somebody who works with people who want to tell their stories probably feels great. The other bone to pick with you, though.
I was like, wait, is this an issue? Sounds to me like I just gave you a tool.
You had me sobbing in public. You had me sobbing in the cabin of an airplane. As I was reading this, I was traveling for work. I think when I told you I was going to read it, I didn't get to it. And then I read it on my next work trip. And I was traveling home from Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm sitting in this and I'm reading and I am just sobbing. And
I love this. Actually, this makes me so happy. It gives me little goosebumps.
It was something. I'll just get this part out of the way. It is beautiful. You absolutely crushed it. And I'm excited to dive in and talk about the process and the work.
Thanks. Sorry I made you cry in public though.
It's okay. I'm a crier. It was, I remember do you remember the Sean Penn movie, I Am Sam?
Probably not. Oh yes, I've seen this one. Yeah.
With Michelle Pfeiffer, he plays a person who's mentally challenged. I don't know the politically correct term these days for it, but that is what he plays. And he's a father And
Mm-hmm.
it is the girl who is Dakota Fanning was the actress, and she looked just like my little sister. And
Oh,
I was like, I don't know, I was like 13 or 14, and I'm like watching that movie on the seat back, on like a flight,
yeah.
and like I had to get up to go get tissues or something, and I would just walk down, and everybody else is also watching the movie and also crying. She's like big burly biker dudes just sobbing. I'm like, you want some tissues, man?
That's so
But no,
sweet.
you had me crying, and it's really good. It's great. I don't even know where to start really. So the I'm gonna start with the structure of it. So I mean, the as I was reading it, there's some shorter vignette chapters towards the end, but it opens with these sort of vignette chapters that just kind of get
Mhm.
us going. What was your organizational process for this? Like at what point did you know these are all going to fit into a memoir? How much of this was just your
Yeah.
own writing to write about these moments? Like what made you choose the structure? Where did you start both in
Mhm.
time and in like the actual sit down of it all?
This is really a great question, and it's perfect timing because I spent all morning this morning writing a speech for tomorrow. Oops, about like how do you turn like the personal into like capital S story. Um, so for those who don't know, so my memoir, No Heroic Measures, it's out through Santa Fe Writers Project, and it's a memoir of a lot of things, but it's a memoir specifically of my relationship with my dad, who was a very ill alcoholic, who eventually passed away of alcohol induced liver failure. Um, and so know, uh, I didn't know that I was writing a book right away. Um, as you know, by the time my dad became very, very ill, I had been estranged from him for almost a decade. Um, and so when I got the phone call that he had become unwell, and he didn't, due to the very flawed social services and healthcare industry in California, did not have any resources available to him or anyone to help him. As he was preparing to enter into hospice, I took on the responsibility of caring for him. So in the beginning, it was just me writing just everything. I mean, I already like was a writer by the time my dad got sick. I had already had some stuff published. I was teaching writing, so it made total sense to me to start there because that's all I know how to do is like process these things through stories. And so the vignette structure kind of came out naturally because I was writing these like snapshots or like scenes or things like as they happened, or as I kind of had these like cycles of resolution, like hearing that he was unwell and like trying to get him into like a treatment facility, and then discovering that what we really actually needed was hospice. And so it kind of was a great way for me to like make these little bubbles of like, okay, we've done this, now we have to do this. And what I'm speaking on tomorrow is that eventually, when I kind of started to really uncover like what the whole story was when I found this picture in my dad's house of him building a bike for me for Christmas. And he's like on the floor of our living room, our childhood kitchen. And he's like building this bike. And I thought, like, that same man that built me a bike for Christmas is also the same man that caused me great harm. And like these hands that are assembling this bicycle are the same hands that literally and figuratively tried to kill me 2 decades later. And it was that like sentiment of the hands that made me, I was like, okay, well, I have something here. And I started to kind of unpack, like, what does that mean? Like, how do we get from this man building this bike, to this man dying in a hospital bed with his estranged daughter? And so that's when I started kind of trying to piece them together because I didn't understand them. I did not know how we got there. And the more I wrote about it, the more I came to like know about my dad. So it was a relief of sorts sometimes, but it was also further generative. I learned more things about him that I didn't know, which of course revealed more questions. So I just kept writing them and writing them and writing them. And eventually someone was like, stop it. You have to like sit down and rewrite it from the beginning, like linearly. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. Which of course he was right. I had to sit down and really sit with it. But by then I had already gotten several of these little essays published, and I knew that I was onto something. And it took someone else pointing it out to me. Once they read like the pivotal scene with, had firearm on a drunken Saturday afternoon, they were like, there's a story here. And like, you really owe it to people to share this story. And so then I just sat down and got to work in a more concentrated manner.
I mean, it is linear in the sense that it progresses from a younger age to like where you are now, but it is
now.
Yeah. But it's super lean, right? Like there's I want to hear about the details that you chose to go into versus the details that you chose not to go into. So like knowing, and you obviously allude to certain things towards the end, you kind of talk about other things, other relationships, right? Like your own struggles, your own issues, but you kept it like very targeted with like, I remember there was I think you posted it last year. There was an Instagram picture you posted. I don't know if it was on the anniversary of his death. And you were like, our book comes out next year. And I remember reading that caption and being like, oh man, that's really sweet. And then as I'm reading the book, I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's what it is. Like, this is a book about that, even though there are clearly other things happening in your life. And so when you write a memoir, you need to be targeted. So how did you approach, what details to include, what details to leave out, and how to sort of stay on target with what you were. Yeah.
This is really challenging. And this is what I teach in memoir classes, like specifically, is that memoir isn't like a retelling of everything that happened to you in your whole life. Memoir is also not making sure that you involve everyone that was in your life at that time. And a lot of this, thank you for calling it lean, by the way, that's a high compliment. Someone just this morning, everyone says like, don't read the comments. I didn't listen to them. I went on Goodreads this morning and because I'm just starting to get these, it's exciting. And this morning someone compared me to Didion, and I swear to God, I was like, I threw my phone in front of me. I was like, I'm done. Done. I'm never writing another word again in my whole life. But back to sparse memoir. That's literally that's your job as a memoirist, is to be as emotionally true and factually accurate as possible with your life and your story with one particular sentiment. It cannot be everything. And so it was really, a lot of that is just revision. A lot of it is, culling out what didn't need to be there. And by the time we got to publication and like copy edits and stuff, there was a lot that I really had to cut out. Relationships that had ended that I wanted stripped from the manuscript, like as much as possible. And also like making sure like how much of it still, even in like draft 5, 6, 7, how much of it was me trying not to embarrass someone, or, which of course I never want to do that. But even sometimes in just retelling the actual factual truth, that can be embarrassing. And I didn't want to do that either. So figuring out how much might have embarrassed someone, how much of it might have harmed someone who I care about, and also how much of it was someone else's story that I didn't have any business telling, So a lot of it was culling that out. And then also my children were young when I was writing it, but they're grown now. My children are taller than me. I'm the shortest one in our house. But it was important to me that they also feel represented in the text in a way that was okay with them. With them, I didn't give the book to anybody to read. I mean, like, family wise, until it was finished. And then I was very deliberate when I told them, like, this is it. This is the draft. It's gone to print. Just want you to be able to, read it ahead of time as a courtesy so you're not caught off guard. But with my children, I gave it to them earlier and was like, this is, you're in this, like, I'm your mom. And like, this was your grandpa, even though you never knew him. And like, this is stuff about our life. And it's important to me that you're okay with it. And all of them were. So it, that part wound up being okay. But it also, a lot of it was just, it was all there in the beginning. It was a totally different book in the beginning. It was long, it was verbose. It was a lot of like, he's an asshole and I'm not, and let me tell you why. And then we had to cut all of that out. There's a saying in memoir, everyone who's ever been in a class with me has heard it before, and it's not mine. I wish I could remember where I heard it, but it's somebody else that taught it to me forever ago. And it's the only person that should ever look like an asshole in your memoir is you. And so it was really important to me that I cut all of that, like posturing, pretentiousness, like false stereotypes, all of those things needed to go. And then what was left just happened to be lean, which is a style I prefer anyway. So it felt true to me.
I do want to talk a little bit more about the humanity you gave to yourself along those lines. But so in terms of like process for you, was it helpful for you to have a bigger manuscript to cull down from?
Yes.
And I'm not from a publishing standpoint, but from a personal writing standpoint, to write through everything and then go in and surgically remove. Because I think, right, like I've been in classes with you before, and obviously we have a lot of people in our shared community who
hi everybody
that do write like this or want to write more like this. And I think a lot of times, I'll speak for myself, I get caught up in I'll call it an obsession with detail and an obsession with like, but it also, I do find it helpful to go through the process of like, let me just get everything out and then find what's there, pull it out, and then work on that. Is that
totally.
how you, yeah.
I mean, yes. Yeah. I am, I cannot, at home, we call them buckets. I cannot work in several buckets at a time. I can't, I make myself crazed. And so I work in one bucket at a time, because otherwise I just can't do it. So for me, I knew, okay, I'm just going to finish this, whatever, chapter, section, manuscript, revision, whatever it was that I'm working in. I just have to finish this section. And then I can do whatever I want. I can revise it. I can keep going. I can never look at it again. I can put it away. I can give it to my husband to read. He sees everything first. And so I have to have something, palpable, or something that appears palpable to me, so that I know I just have to do this and then I can do this. And it's also, not everyone works like this. This is how I work. And this is how I encourage my students to work, is I cannot edit and also generate. I can't do it. The second I start, it kills me, because I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, you know better than this. You're not supposed to. I'm like, no, stop. All I have to do is make 5 new sentences, not tell myself I'm an idiot because I got stuck on the third, because there's this one word that seems off, So I won't even spell check, nothing. It's just everything goes on the page. And then I'll go back to it. And then I'll start to figure out, like, okay, well, what was I really trying to say? Or why did I go on this tangent? So often we think like, no, I have to stay to this point. I have to get this detail down. But if your brain, if your self-will run riot is telling you like, hey, look at this over here, tells me that there's an association there, be it intellectual or emotional or spiritual or creatively, something's happening there that's bringing you back to it. And who am I to not honor that, So for me, it is, I do better when I can see like the whole thing. And then go back to it. Because also you don't know what revision and editing will lead you to, or like what it will ask you to do, And so if I'm starting to write, I have an essay about teeth, and I use this as an example all the time, because when I started to write the essay, I thought the essay was about like why I hate going to the dentist. Eventually, what I discovered is that the essay isn't about me hating to go to the dentist. It's about inequities of healthcare available to people and how it's so often revealed. As a kid, all I had to do, if you had braces or clean white teeth, I knew you had health insurance. If I would have just like stuck to the facts of going to the dentist, I would never have gotten to what I was really saying in the essay. So it's really just more about what you want to get out of that writing session, because also I'll reverse engineer that. If I'm editing and then I know, okay, you're not writing any new sentences today. Like you are sitting down and editing this. And so what I'll do, by then it'll be in a Word document or a Google Doc. And then I'll make myself comments. Like right now you're thinking about blah, 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 blah. So I'll know to come back to that, but I'm not writing that right now. I'm editing. So for me, I have to be very careful about shifting my mental energy from writing to editing to writing to editing.
You're strict with the discipline of this is what I'm sitting down to do, and you allow yourself the opportunity to make a note that will then jog you. Like what stops you from being like, man, this is a powerful thought and feeling I really need to explore it right now? Like, do you find the structure of my writing session is my writing session and my editing session is my editing session helps you when you eventually then come back to that note?
No, listen, I'm a crafty ass bitch. I can talk myself in or out of anything. And so if I give myself the liberty to say, oh, I'm going to break this rule this one time and write this paragraph, it's all bets are off. I'm off to the races. I can't do it.
I'm flipping.
But please do. But I've been doing this long enough that I know it's okay. I'll remember this. I'll come back to the note. It'll still be here. And I only know that because I fine-tuned this to what works for me. It might not work for somebody else, Also, I have a gazillion emails, voice notes, notes in the note. I have a gazillion. If anybody else read them, they'd be absolute gibberish. But to me, I'm thinking of this, I have to send it because I can't do it right then. And so then I'll remember. I have a whole folder in my email in my email account from me to me. And it's just bullshit that I send myself all day long. And so when I have time to sit down and generate new material, I just open that bad boy up and I'm like, look at all these things I thought last week. So I guess really you just have to find what works for you, but then it's your responsibility to honor it. No one else is going to prioritize that for you ever.
Yeah,
like you have to do
it, right? Like that's
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So, do you write longhand? You've got notes, you've got emails, but when you sit down to write, are you writing on a yellow legal pad and then putting it into a word processor, or are you writing in a word processor? What is your process?
I used to do that. I used to write by hand and then transfer it over. And I'm just in front of my desk too much now. That doesn't work for me. I keep a notepad on me. I write in that constantly. I have one in my work bag. I have one in my purse. I have one in the car. I have one in my backpack. So I still write a lot on pen and paper. but a lot of it is just my phone. I'm a full-time faculty member. Just got tenure track this week, by the
Let's
way. I
go.
know I was like a unicorn. That never happens anymore. So my phone is always on me when I'm walking, everything. So so often I'll just make a note or send myself something virtually, and then I'll open a brand new document, or I love legal pads. I still use legal pads. Or I'll start a new pad. Every project gets a new legal pad. So I guess if I'm saying that out loud, I think it just clicked for me. If I'm writing something longer that's going to require like more sustained attention, it's legal pads. If it's something shorter, like one essay or something I can work in kind of like smaller bursts, it goes on an electronic document. And then the notepads go with me everywhere, and the phone gibberish. Saying it out loud makes it sound really messy.
I think all artists can relate to that. I've got this. I mean, you said that, and I'm nodding because I'm like, yeah, I've got the same thing. I've got my note up over here, and it's just a bunch of stuff that even my wife, who's my creative partner, if she went through it, she'd be like, "What even is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, it's this for this project." And she's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Right.
Like, yeah.
And you know what? I'll say this too. I'm the type of person that like when it comes to stuff like that, I have to see it. Like I have stacks on, again, buckets, one thing at a time. So like I have grading stacks on my desk. I have like writing stacks on my desk, book I have to read. Keith has like a million notebooks. Like he has like pen and paper notebooks for everything that he's working on. That would give me great anxiety because I would have to take all of them with me everywhere all of the time in case I thought of something and didn't have like the right notebook. Could not do that. It works for him. And so for me, like the legal pads and like the phone and stuff, I'll always have it, know? So whenever I have a thought to add to it or can sit down and work on it in a like designated manner, I feel wholly prepared or mostly prepared.
Yeah. So you're constantly taking notes in a bunch of different places, but when you sit down to write one of these projects that you're working on, are you a same time, same place every day?
Not at all. No, nope. And this is very challenging to me. We have a full house. We still have young kids at home. We both work in and outside of the home. We're very active in our community. We are just, we're no different than anybody else. We're very busy. And so I have to prioritize like set times ahead of time, and I have to plan them like anything else. Someone at Forever Ago in a podcast about writing said like you have to treat it like a meeting. And so especially when I shifted gears into like full academia, I had to put it on my books and I had to treat it like a meeting, which having my own office now helps. Shut the door. I put a Post-it up. I don't make eye contact with the students, like peeking through the window, even though there's a note up. And I have to honor that. I also, when I'm working on like longer, bigger, like revising this book, I had to go away. I couldn't do it here in the house. Even here, if I'm, working with my headphones on, someone walking by into the kitchen, to nobody's fault but my own, I'll look up, what do you need? Like I can't do it. So I go away. I'll go to our desert retreat, or I did several residencies at this wonderful place in Temecula called Dorland Arts Colony. They're fantastic. Or I'll go to the library. I did a lot of revisions on this book in the library in just a study carrel and sweatpants, like hiding iced coffee in my backpack so I wouldn't get kicked out. But I have to be like totally removed. It's got to be quiet. I have to like stay absolutely in this very close lane, or I'll never do it.
So, okay. So, as you're going through and making revisions, you mentioned that it was too verbose. I think you used the word pretentious.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with yourself when you go to read that and you're like, all right, this isn't working. I need to fix it but it's also it's an easy thing to do if you're writing like a screenplay that's not biographical at all, or if you're writing,
Mm-hmm.
a television commercial script, or you're writing
Yeah.
copy for a company, whatever. Like that's easy to do. Like, oh, okay, I didn't write that as well as I could have written it,
Mm-hmm.
so like I'm just going to fix that. Like that's an easy sort of role to assume. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're revising your own work, that's extremely personal, in which
Mm-hmm.
you are a main character, and you have those thoughts and feelings, how do
Yeah.
you edit that? How do you view yourself? How do you relate to yourself on the page? How do you relate to the writer who wrote those words on the page? And
Mm-hmm.
what's that relationship like?
It's really hard. It's really hard. It takes utter, like, egoless, clear, critical eyes, um, that's really hard, you know. Um, I also think it took all of those old revisions. I don't think I could have gotten to this revision without first saying everything that I had to say in the earlier revisions. It took me a really long time to write this book. My dad passed away in 2013, and I didn't start like pushing the book for publication in 2016. I had interest from an agent on it who wanted a ton of revisions, and I couldn't do it. Like I wasn't physically able to do it at the time. And I'm in retrospect really glad that I didn't, because it would not have been the right book at all.
Where was the manuscript at? So he died in 2013. You had a
Yeah.
manuscript in 2016.
I had a draft of the manuscript.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a manuscript. Like you had
Yeah.
like you had a working manuscript. Like I'm probably not
The
using the
manuscript,
correct.
no one's ever asked me this. This is actually a really fantastic question. The manuscript at that time was still very much like, look at this really honorable thing I did for no other reason than to be, honorable, and, oh, it was nothing. But I'm going to tell you all, it was so false.
Hmm.
And I think that it's because that's what I thought it was supposed to be, not because I thought I was fantastic, but because I was full of shame over what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to talk about it, let alone like present it to someone without absolute posturing, which was disingenuous. I didn't actually think I was this wonderful human being doing these wonderful things. What I really thought was, I miss my dad so much, and I feel so guilty about what I did. And so embarrassed that this happened to me, and I don't know what to do except try to like bundle it up into this thing that looks like something else. I would have wanted that book buried. I would have wanted that book, because it's just not true. I'm very open about this. This is something, it's Googleable, as the kids these days say. I'm sober now. I'm an active member of a sobriety program, and I wasn't sober yet in 2016. I did not get sober until 2019. And that's when, doing my own work, I started to understand that my dad wasn't just a drunk. My dad was a whole ass human being. And he had flaws, but he also had goals and dreams that he never got to see. And he also had the same fears that I had as I was trying to get sober, all of the same fears that I had when I couldn't get sober. All of the things that I experienced, he never got to experience. And that to me was devastating. I remember when I got to make part of my recovery was apologizing to people that I love. When I got to make those apologies to my children, it was a game changer for me. But it also made me realize that if I had another version of my dad, and one that was able to get sober and stay sober, what would that look like if he was given that opportunity, or he had taken that opportunity rather? And that's when I really started to see, like, this is not first of all, I didn't do this to myself. There's no shame what I did. And there's also no shame in what my dad did. My dad wasn't a bad person doing terrible things. My dad was a sick person who didn't know how to get better. And I didn't have the tools to write that book until I got sober myself. And so it was also like looking through and going through all the work I had done, much of which was unpacking everything that had happened to me in my relationship with my dad. And everything that had happened to me as a young adult, that I really started to understand, like, this is not this, this person that you think you want to put on the page, or this person that you think you need to put on the page. That's not you. Like, what happened really? And that's when it all, took off. And I had my husband in my life at that time, and he was like, how can I help? Like, what do you need? And we were just off to the races with it at that point. So it was really, it also, it wasn't, I mean, if you're not sober or sober curious, or this isn't something that you struggle with, it's fantastic. But other things that I did, I went to therapy. I went to so much therapy. I did lots of like shadow work. I did lots of meditation. I did lots of examining my own like spiritual principles. I did lots of work. And that, again, that's our responsibility. If we're going to write stories in which we want to present ourselves a particular way, or present other people in a particular way, then like we need to be acting that way. So if I'm going to write, a daughter who didn't understand her dad and wishes things were differently, and also wants to convey the principle that like addicts and alcoholics are not shameful people doing shameful things, they're unwell people doing unwell things, then I needed to live that and apply that in what I was writing. And that was a huge shift in the process for me.
So it's interesting. That wasn't a catalyst for you to write because you were already writing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a catalyst for you to revise and essentially rewrite it more truthfully. Is that
yeah.
accurate?
You know what? A great illustration of this is I went to a wonderful MFA program. It's called Bennington Writing Seminars. I will sing about it from the rooftops until I have no voice left in me to sing. But when I applied to that MFA program, I applied with this manuscript, what would become this manuscript, but I applied as fiction, which tells you everything about how I felt about my work and this story and what was happening. I changed my name from Jessica to Jennifer, and I made my maiden name was Hanny. I made my last name like O'Hannigan instead. It was like ridiculous. But once I got into the program and started unpacking or developing like better tools of approaching storytelling, I was like, I made a mistake here. Was like, I have to tell you guys, like, I lied. And they were like, we know. And they shifted me to nonfiction. And that's when I was like, okay, I can talk about this. I need to talk about this. And I can talk about this in a way that is, revelatory, in the sense of like, this is a thing that happens in families. And like, we need to be talking about it. And so that kind of, again, I needed some outside catalyst. I needed someone showing me, or someone telling me, or something changing for me to better see that.
How did you split the difference between, so you had one way of telling the story in which you were a flawless heroine,
yeah,
right? And then you were talking about, you said the quote that you have that you got from somebody, which is, the only person who should look like an asshole in your memoir is you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't come across like an asshole, and I know what you mean by that, but
sure,
the difference is split here. Like, how did you find your own humanity to tell the truth, to be factually accurate, like you said, and emotionally accurate, like you said?
Mm-hmm.
Because there is validity in those emotions that you felt that drove you to present yourself in an untruthful light. So you need to figure out how to address it. So like, how did you figure out how to split the difference to tell the truth as you see it now, versus swinging the pendulum to the other direction and be like, I'm a total dickhead in this story now?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an excellent question. I think I just really needed, I just tried my best to be as honest as possible, whether I liked it or not. I mean, there's one chapter in there where I hang up on my dad because I was irritated. Like, this man is dying and I hung up on him. Like, that's not, no, who wants to write that? And so I think, like, that's a great example of, like, did I want to write that? No. In a perfect world, I would be a daughter with a well of patience who's not fluttered by anything and loves to hear from her dad. But, like, I had shit to do, and you just called me 5 minutes ago and you're being a dick and I don't want to take this and I'm going to hang. And he's literally in a hospital bed, like, struggling to breathe, weighing under 100 pounds. And I hung up on him. Like, that doesn't feel good to write, but that I did that. I did that.
Yeah.
You know?
Such a human and relatable thing. It's interesting. I would be curious for the, for people to read this book who haven't lost a parent, their perspective and experience reading the book is versus somebody who's an adult who has lost a parent, too soon, right? Like, my dad died a couple of years ago. You and I were chatting quite a bit during that period. And so, like, obviously, as I read this, with very different experiences, but I found a lot of similarities on the human level, right? Like, just those little details that you're describing. So I could imagine somebody who who's like roughly our age,
Right.
who hasn't dealt with a parent passing away and is like, wow, why would she do that? Whereas, like, me, I'm like, oh, I totally get that, because life is happening. And also death was happening. And that's a really weird place to sit. But the only way you can sit there is to recognize the humanity of it, which is, well, these little details happen. I still experience the emotions that I experience acutely, right? In these moments where you're like, no, I can't talk right now. I gotta go.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know that anyone that hasn't lost a parent is going to be interested.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true, because I do think that even if you haven't lost a parent, the numbers in this country for substance addiction are astronomical. They're higher than they've ever been. And part of that is because we have new ways of reporting. They're never really actually accurate because all of the shame behind substance addiction anyway. So they're almost impossible to measure or gauge anyway. But the number that we use nowadays is that for every one person that gets clean and sober, that ripples out to 7 other people in their just immediate circle. And so imagine if one person getting clean and sober ripples out into those next 7 people. Out of those 7 people, 4 out of those 7 people are going to be affected by a different person that's experiencing substance addiction. I mean, the overlap here it will blow your mind if you look at the data, if you look at the physical graphics, the visual graphics. So a lot of what I wanted to do in this book also is convey how backwards our system is when it comes to treatment of anyone that doesn't easily fit into a category. My dad had been long unemployed by the time he became very ill. Was destitute, was living in a house that had almost been condemned twice, didn't always have like utilities, was renting out his extra rooms to friends, but was too young to get on like age assisted medical. And because he technically owned the house that he was living in, had too many assets to get on social service. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so there's a part of the book that's about that also. There's also a lot in there that's about like the unspoken tasks and spoken tasks of caregiving, and who's oftentimes assuming those roles. And why do we assume those roles? I'm not an only child. Why was it automatically assumed that I would be the one to do it? You know, why is it that we live in a county that exists in a state that was like, well, I'm not going to do it. You got a daughter, call your daughter. Like, why all of these things deserve to be investigated the same way as I think grief of a parent does. And unfortunately, you know, just like addiction, we're all going to lose someone, you know, either we're going to lose a parent or a parent's going to lose us. And I can't tell you the number of people. Just yesterday, someone reached out to me and their parent passed away Saturday, and they came home to their book in their mailbox Saturday afternoon. And they were like, this, I can't tell you how this book saved my life over the weekend, which is like, what? I can't even, it's unimaginable to me. 3 weeks ago, I ran into someone that was like, you know what? I haven't talked to my mom in 20 years, and your book really made me think about a few things. It's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. Even if you take the like Dad and Jessica aspect out of it, the book is still working, which is exactly what I wanted. You could make this anybody and her dad in any state, and I still want it to do something.
Yeah, except you can't, right? Like that, to use another one of your quotes, specificity is generosity, right?
You're right.
Yeah. That one's your, I can attribute that to you, or did you steal that?
Yeah, well done.
Okay. Good. It's my favorite. I use it all the time. I try to use it all the time, and sometimes it doesn't work. I'm like, okay, I can't use it in that scenario, but I still love it. I'm always using it. But you can't, right? Like it's interesting. It's where Dre and I were talking about a project. Well, we also, one of our best friends from high school, her dad just passed suddenly. And Dre's going to the funeral tomorrow. I can't make it because I'm with the kids, and there's just, you know, these last minute things, these happen, you know? And so I just got in touch with our friend, and I'm like, hey man, like whatever you need or nothing at all, I'm here thinking about you, praying for you. Like, you know, and she was like, yeah, this is the worst club to join. Right. She was there for me when my dad died. She's like, the worst club in the world to join, but, you know, glad I've got you in it, you know, like that kind of thing. And it is the only way that you would reach people with this story is with your story. So while there are universal touch points, those universal touch points are only going to happen with the specific, is your specific. And if you didn't tell the truth about your story, there's no telling what detail is in your truthful story that might not apply directly to somebody else, but they're latching onto it because it's true, and you told it the way that you needed to tell it.
You're absolutely right. Also, speaking of specificity is generosity, this would not happen to anybody else, but I have to take a 10-second break to take a coffee cake out of the oven.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm back. You're right. And I love that phrase stuck with you, because I also worked really hard at that, because my dad was he was so intelligent. He was so creative. He was very successful in his work until he wasn't. You know, he decorated our house, you know, so elaborately every Halloween, and everything was like mechanized, and there's dry ice, and all of these things were so specific to my dad. You know, he pickled his own eggs and kept them in the refrigerator in the garage. He was like a successful sports fisherman, so he had like his marlins and stuff. All of these things were just Bob, you know. And especially I think in grief work and grief memoirs, like I wanted to show the reader, look at what I lost, you know. And in this story, I lost it even before he died. I lost it a decade earlier than that, when I walked away from our relationship, you know? And so I think this is one of the reasons why this story is so powerful, because I made the decision to estrange myself from my father. And then when he got sick, I desperately wanted to take it back. I was like, no. It was like a child again. Like, I made a mistake. I want to do over. I didn't know this was going to happen. All of those things. And so it was, we would have lost that emotional weight if I didn't tell like this precise story. And I also think so often that there's so many stigmas around addiction, and substance addiction, substance abuse, that we so often have this picture in our mind of like what these people look like. And I didn't want that to be the picture of my dad, because that wasn't accurate. You know, that's not usually accurate for most people. And so I really wanted to be very specific about who he was as a person, and what we lost when we lost him as a person, and then what we lost all over again when he died. I thought I turned the timer.
No, that'll be good.
And the only way that I would have been able to do that is by showing what he was specifically like, you know, like how he cooked his soups. And I love this part of the story. There's a section in there about my dad's cooking and how much he loved to cook. And he was like a member of the cheese club in like the 90s, when no one was buying mail order cheese. And my son, who's about to be 20, after he read that, he's a chef. He works in a kitchen. One night a week, every week, he makes dinner for our family. And after he finished reading the book, he like read and reread and studied the section where my dad had made this particular soup. And my son was able to recreate that soup. And as a surprise, oh, Carrie, the tears flowing. It makes me emotional just thinking about it.
Was it the split pea soup?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I ate a lot of split pea soup growing up.
Yeah. So for me, that was, I mean, like a top 10 moment for me for sure. But it also should, you know, speaking as writers on a craft level, like we did it, you know, that section of the book was specific and generous enough for him to be able to get what he needed out of that book to make this soup. Without me saying specifically, like, here's the recipe for this soup. So that was a really cool moment.
That's incredibly special. Yeah, what a gift. Yeah, it's interesting the impact that people. It's interesting to think about. Like I think about that with my dad, because our youngest daughter is 10 months old. Mm-hmm. 10 months old comes out, and he will just have never met him.
Right.
And so it's like this. It's like that interesting, you know, different circumstances than your kids not interacting with your dad, but also remarkably similar in certain ways. Mm-hmm. My dad died too young, your dad died too young, and now they don't have the opportunity to develop a relationship, right?
Right.
And so it's interesting, the things that we provide for our kid. You're doing it, you know, in a public way, right? By like publishing this memoir, but mm-hmm. you're providing a bridge there for that gap to not be completely, you know, it's not completely bridged, but there's something there that tethers those two in a way that otherwise wouldn't have, if you wouldn't have written it that way.
I think it was so important for them also, not only to come to understand him, but also to better understand me. You know, I mean, no one is so naive these days to think that this childhood stuff doesn't follow us into adulthood. We all know that it does, you know? And so I think it was really also just, again, another reminder, my children are older. I wouldn't suggest doing this to, you know, willy-nilly, but it was also really meaningful to them to be able to understand, because like my younger two never even met him. My oldest did meet him, and he's they're all in the book, but my oldest son is in the book interacting with my dad a couple of times. And then of course my stepdaughter, who I just call my daughter, she's just my fourth kid. She never got to meet him either. She was entered my life after. So it was really meaningful, I think, also to them. It was like a puzzle piece that they didn't even know that they had in the box.
And there's only so many conversations you can have, and only so many ways that you could communicate with your voice. But like
Right.
you use your gift to communicate, which like they're going to by reading this, they're going to understand the best possible way that they could, because this is the best possible way you could communicate it. Not that you can't have a conversation to communicate well, but like this is your gift. Your gift is to write this way. And so for you to share that with them is something I think that like,
Special.
I'll be so lucky.
Yeah. I just, through a number of weird twists and turns and coincidences, I just got my hands back on a whole box of old photos. And the same son, the soup son, was, carries it over to me. And I opened it up, and I instantly was overcome with emotion, because right there on top was my mom and dad's wedding photo. And I was like, oh, that's my dad, like instantly. And I my dad has been dead. Okay. It's 14 years. And within seconds, my body was like, you're crying. And it was, the grief never stops. The grief never stops. The questioning never stops. It just becomes different. But looking through the rest of those gifts, and my poor child's like, I gotta go to work. I was like, leave him.
But that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. So it was, it was nice. It's also been really wonderful to just like, I don't know, it's almost like they're kind of like developing this relationship with my dad, with their grandpa, like posthumously, so there's old pictures of him when he was fishing. There's like pictures of him, hunting as a kid, his high school graduate. I mean, it just was phenomenal. So yeah, it's been wonderful, this whole process.
Yeah. The details. I mean, I love the way that it's interesting, because I think some people could hear specificity is generosity, and therefore the best way to be the most specific is to include all of the details, right? But like back to what we talked at the beginning, which is specificity is the minimum viable number of details that are factually accurate, that communicate that emotional truth, right? And it's like those moments between your parents there at the end, like middle towards the end, like just when your mom came into the room, and just that moment that you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here to see this. But like, I'm also see this because I've never got to see that before.
Yeah. My mom is, I love my mom so much, man. She is just a gift to me. The book is dedicated to her. It's on page 1, which she cried when she got it. I don't know how, I mean, now I know how, I'm her age now, when she was, and now I have an idea of how she did it, but she didn't have to do that. She had been so long divorced from this man, so far removed, that she didn't have to do it, but she did. And that in and of itself is a whole story, and it's just a complicated, multi-layered story. But again, true to memoir, this was my story with, the story is me and my dad, but this aspect of that story was, this is what my mom did for me, right now, and how everything I've ever known on how to show up for the people that love me and need me, it's from my mom. And so to see that, like in action in the book, with absolutely no expectations, and oddly never any resentments. She's just like, this is what we're doing now, kept me afloat. I mean, it really did. It still does. I still call my mom all the time. I'll call her after this. So it was, yeah, it was really neat. But it also, I mean, I love that you made that connection from like my experience with Oliver, like looking at the pictures of my dad and me being in the room with my parents, and how I was like, holy shit, they're in the same room. Like, so it was, I mean, it's something, it's really a magical, weird thing.
Yes. Well, it is a beautiful thing. It is great. Thank you for sharing it with me early. Where I want to be respectful of your time. Where can folks find you? Where can folks find the book?
Yes. So I've always wanted to say this. It's available everywhere that books are sold, which is amazing. When it was put up on Target placed an order, and I was like, oh my God. My kids were like,
Knick-Knack in Target? That's amazing.
I know. Yeah, anyway, we're big fans of Target, so that was really meaningful to me. But anyway, Target, Barnes and Noble, any of your independent bookstores, which you should be supporting anyway, Bookshop. If you use Amazon, it's available on Amazon. You can find me online at jessica-danger.com. I'm also very active on Instagram. It's at Mama Danger. And I'm touring all summer. I have 7 stops planned from now until September. So
this will go live on Monday. So where are you going to be?
So next week, I will be next Saturday. I'll be in Tustin. So that's May 9th at Arvita Books in Tustin, California at 2 p.m. That's my next one.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I could talk to you for hours about this, but which I'm sure we will log more hours talking about this and other writing. Appreciate you. Appreciate the words. Appreciate the book.
Thanks, Carrie.
We'll chat soon.
Okay.